Hey everyone, it's Eve Richards from the Discovery Pod with Eve. We've got a very special Thanksgiving episode, so please make sure you, after having your Thanksgiving meal, you tune in because you never know who's going to be our special guest on Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays. Welcome back to another episode of the Discovery Pod with Eve. We've got such an exciting show today with a TV legend, Burt Ward. We'll get into his background in a minute. So please make sure you watch this episode on the Discovery Pod with Eve's YouTube channel, or you can listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. We are available every Thursday at 12 p.m. Pacific time. I am so excited to be hosting today with my co-host, Tess Broussard. I hope I pronounced her name correctly because it's French. But Tess, welcome back to another episode of the Discovery Pod with Eve.
Thank you.
Tell our listeners out there who may not know much about you something about your background.
Well, I'm a Southern Belle. I'm from Texas, and I used to model a lot. I was a fitness model for many sportswear companies. I was a poster girl for Budweiser, Harley Davidson, calendar girl. I was a spokesmodel for Cadillac, and I toured with them all across the country. Then I got into film and TV, and my niche is comedy. And
Fantastic.
I've been on Jamie Foxx to
Wow.
Comedy Central.
That's incredible. So we've got someone here who's an icon, Burt Ward, and you're going to be doing the intro, but I really like the fact that we're hosting this episode together because you also do a lot of you rescue a lot of pets, and so tell us a little bit about your work.
Oh, on the weekends, I volunteer at the animal shelter. I've gotten all my dogs from the rescues, like Dogs Without Borders, the Caring Song in Brentwood, and it just gives me such a fabulous feeling just to give back to these animals and just to walk them, feed them, give them love. And I think everybody should be able to have animals that are rescued.
Fantastic. So I think we should go ahead and introduce our iconic TV personality.
All right. Well, I'm happy to present our next guest. He is a TV icon. Has a Hollywood Walk of Fame star and is an entrepreneur. He also has an animal rescue and a nonprofit dog and cat food line out. And this person is Burt Ward, the original Robin from the Batman TV series. Yes, he and his wife. Thank you. Like that, Burt. He and his wife Tracy. He and his wife Robin have rescued over 15,500 dogs and over 100 cats in the past 30 years. They have also created Gentle Giants, natural non-GMO ingredients, pet food to help all pets live longer and healthier. Dogs eating Gentle Giants natural non-GMO ingredients, dog and puppy food are following a Gentle Giant special feeding and care program are living up to 30 years, 30 active years, with a wonderful quality of life. Now, I'm going to have to ask you about that too, Burt. They also created Gentle Giants, natural GMO ingredients, cat and kittens food to live a long, healthy, active life too.
Incredible.
Learn more about this at gentlegiantsdogfood.com, and let me make sure I got this one right. gentlegiantspetproducts.com. There you go. That was a mouthful.
Wow. What an incredible honor it is to have you. So I'll dive right into the first question. As you reflect on your journey from playing Robin to becoming a powerful voice in animal advocacy, How has your understanding of, being a true hero evolved over the years?
Well, thank you for inviting me to your show. I don't think of myself as a hero. I think of myself as someone who not only loves life, but loves life for pets and our precious pets, our dogs and cats and other pets. And it's funny. People do ask, well, how is it on one hand you're playing Robin on Batman, and all of a sudden now afterwards you're rescuing all these animals? Well, think about it. That on Batman and Robin were rescuing Gotham citizens from heinous villains. And so whether you rescue humans or animals, well, they're both animals, it's still the same concept. So for the last 30 years, my wife and I have been rescuing dogs.
Wow.
We actually have become the world's largest giant breed dog rescue.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you. In the last, actually, we stopped counting about 10 years ago when we reached 15,500 dogs
Oh my
that
God.
we saved personally, every one of which would have been put to death if we hadn't been there to rescue them. We provided them complete medical care, a loving home inside our house.
Wow.
We're not like other rescues that have dogs outside or in yards or in buildings. All of our animals live in our home with us.
Wow.
And that is 24/7,
Wow.
7 days a week for 30 years. My wife, Tracy, it's her name, Tracy, she cares for these animals about 8 or 9 hours a day.
Wow.
And if you think about it, 8 or 9 hours a day, 7 days a week for 30 years,
Wow.
that is really a huge commitment of time and effort and love. And so we rescued all these dogs, and how it came about is that my wife and I, we had a daughter about a year and a half after we were married, and we decided we were living right there at the beach, right near the beach here in Southern California, but in a very tall house that had no backyard, and we thought it would be great for our child to have a backyard and room to play and run. So we moved here about an hour and a half east of Los Angeles, halfway between LA and Palm Springs, in the last western town in America called Norco, Norco,
Wow.
where horses have the right of way over cars, and it's a very western. So we got a dog for our daughter, a Great Dane. I always wanted to have a Great Dane. My wife used to have Irish Wolfhounds, but we found a Great Dane that needed rescue, and we heard about others that people had them in their home, but they were going to have to give them up. And but they weren't in danger. They actually weren't in a shelter at that time. So we didn't take those because we figured that they would find a home. Weeks later, we found out all of the dogs that we didn't take from people's homes, when they finally had to give them up, there was nobody to take them. They were turned into a shelter, and all of them were put to death because there was
so
no
sad.
room.
Oh
Okay,
my
so
gosh.
long story short, we decided that, just at least temporarily, for at least a couple of weeks, I said to my wife, Tracy, just till we find somebody else to take this over,
Yeah.
let's save these dogs. So by the end of August of 1994, in our house, we had 102 full-size Great Danes
Wow.
and 61 puppies under 7 weeks of age. It was actually, I believe, 7 litters. And my poor wife, Tracy, slept on the kitchen floor for about 4 months because the mothers have to nurse the puppies, and they don't always stay on, and they got to be nursed. And then when the mothers get up and they want to go out to go to the bathroom, a Great Dane is so big that if it accidentally steps on a puppy, it would kill it. So my wife is making sure that nobody gets stepped on, puts the mother out, incubates the puppies in a warm area, brings the next litter in with the mother and the puppies, and by the time she gets finished with the 7th litter, it's time to start all over again. She could
Wow.
never leave our kitchen practically.
Oh.
So we did this, and we were saving all these lives, and we found homes for more than 15,500 dogs. But in the course of doing this, we discovered that giant breeds live very short lifetimes.
Wow.
Mastiffs and Irish Wolfhounds only live 6 to 8 years. Great Danes live 7 to 9 years.
Wow.
And these are such sweet animals, I'm telling you. They are so gentle, and that's why they are called gentle giants.
Nice.
So when we would lose one, if we didn't adopt it, it was so devastating that my wife and I decided if there was a way, we were going to try to find a way to help them live longer. So we first created, because remember, if you're living with animals 24/7, you pretty quickly find out what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we developed a feeding and care program, which, and it has evolved and been modified, and it is amazing that basically we have dogs normally living twice their normal lifespan.
Okay, wait.
Twice.
Hold on. So, Burt, I applaud you for your animal rescue and taking in all these beautiful animals. I want to also, before I get into my question, I just want to tell you that my neighbor has bought your food, and he gave it a thumbs up, and he said it's good shit. Wait, am I okay with saying that?
No.
Oh, sorry.
I
you
like
have
the
to
good
bleep
part.
that.
Yes.
So, but he said
Yeah.
it's really good stuff. And
it's well, you see, we operate our rescue, and we operate with our food, and we don't take any money from it.
Wow.
You see, this is not about making money, because all the pet food companies, it's really honestly all about money as far as I'm concerned to them. But for us, no, it's about life. The most precious commodity in the world is life. And these dogs are so loving. So we basically created a feeding care program, which I'll be happy to discuss with you, to show you if you have a dog or a cat, how you can add years to their lives.
Yeah.
And then also we created a food. And when we went to make our food, we thought we were just going to make it for our rescue dogs.
Yeah.
And we thought, we can afford it. Let's make the best food that we can possibly make. Maybe we can help them live a year longer or two. Well, it turned out what we found out about what the pet food companies do by adding massive amounts of fat into the food and on the outside of the food to get dogs to eat more food, to make you buy more dog food, we'd found to be unscrupulous.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons they're not living so long. We didn't discover the fountain of youth. We're just not prematurely killing dogs.
Okay, so let me ask you, what about, like, when I go to the pet store and I don't know much about the dog foods, I have to ask the clerk, and they usually suggest grain-free. Is that good or not? Because my dogs don't eat it.
Okay. Well, honestly, that has nothing to do with it.
Oh, okay.
Whether it's grain, I mean, you need basic nutrition, and it can be with grain or without grain. That isn't the issue. Let me tell you what the issues are.
Yes, tell me.
Which makes a difference. First thing is, and since you have dogs, and now I've just found that out, and since you're feeding a food, when you get home, why don't you do this little test? Pick up 3 or 4 kibbles of whatever you're feeding, rub those kibbles in your fingers real firmly for about 4 or 5 seconds, put them down and rub your fingers together and see if you don't feel that slightly greasy feeling.
I have.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, a lot of people notice it when they clean their bowls. That's animal fat. Animal fat that has been sprayed onto the outside of every single kibble, completely encapsulating that. And it's on the inside too. And it is done because not for any benefit, real benefit. The benefit, main benefit, is that it affects their brains to make them think they're always hungry.
Wow.
So they'll eat more food, and the more food they eat, the more you have to buy. And
But-
people say,
so-
well, why do you say it's so dangerous to have that? And because we believe it's killing dogs prematurely. And that's a big statement. So let me tell you why.
Okay.
If you cooked bacon or you cooked chicken or you cooked turkey, you cooked any meat, steak, and you had the fat after you cooked it, would you take that and pour it down your sink into your garbage disposal?
No.
Of course not. You would never do it because you know the difference. You know that water evaporates, but animal fat coagulates, and when it hardens, it's like cement. And if you took a can or a cup full of fat and liquid fat and poured it down your sink, then and let it be there till the next day, you would be calling a plumber to replace your garbage disposal and dig out your sink. So my point is, when you realize that animal fat will ruin a metal garbage disposal, what do you think is happening to the arteries and intestines of the dog you love, or the dogs, when every single meal, every single kibble is encapsulated in animal fat? It's clogging their arteries.
Yeah.
And just like humans, what happens to humans when they get clogged arteries and clogged intestines?
They have heart
can get
attacks.
heart attacks.
Yeah.
So dogs. So that's one thing, but there's something even bigger that is a problem.
So your work in animal rescue feels like a calling. Do you think your upbringing instilled this passion for helping animals, or was it something that grew through your experiences?
No, when you start caring for animals, you realize how precious they are, how truly they love you unconditionally, and they're so gentle and they're so loving, and all they
So
care
true.
about is loving you, and they deserve to live the longest possible life and be healthy. And what I was just about to tell you is the major difference between our food, besides the fat, which is gigantic, but there's something even bigger, and that is in our country, and this is really important, it affects humans as well. The food we eat has been genetically modified.
Yeah.
More than 90% of our food, whatever you eat, fruits, vegetables, salads, rice, just about everything except the protein, which is living, that's in meat. But everything that is grown has been changed to accept more pesticides. Where in the past, if a farmer grew something like corn or rice or vegetables, when we grows, the bugs attack it. Tess will eat it, and if he sprays a pesticide on it, half the time it kills the plant. So years ago, a company created they took the same company that makes Roundup that you've heard about all the cancer causing. They came out with a product called Roundup Ready Crops, where they affected and changed the DNA, the structure, the molecular structure of what we eat, so that when someone sprays a pesticide to kill the bugs, it kills the bugs, but it doesn't kill the plant. And the plant lives, but the plant absorbs the pesticide, and then combined with the DNA of a pesticide that it was changed to, is like a double whammy, and dogs and cats and other animals and humans are coming down with unheard of amounts of cancer.
Wait, okay, so what is your special care and feeding program to let dogs live up to 30 years? Because my dogs, the longest they've ever lived was to 10, and my cat lived to 15. So I just keep adopting them, because they have such short lifespans.
Let me tell you. All right, let me tell you. First of all, as I was finishing, our food has no GMOs in it. Only 2% of the food supply in our country, only 2% is truly non-GMO. And our food is certified by the suppliers, the ingredient suppliers, to be 100% non-GMO. So that's one thing, getting that food. But now to answer your question about feeding and care, the way we have dogs living so long, and by the way, right now, here in my home, 5 of our dogs here right now are over 20 years of age. 5.
That's
Amazing.
incredible.
Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you how we do it, all right? Because people call us all the time. We get about 1,100 calls a week.
Wow.
Phone calls, emails, text messages, Facebook messages, and people say things like, well, I don't understand it. I look at all these videos on your website, and I see these dogs in their 20s running around like puppies, and my dog is 8 years old, and he's starting to have a problem getting up, and he's starting to have a problem walking, and that doesn't seem fair.
Right.
And I said, well, let me ask you a couple of questions. Number one, are you feeding our food?
Yeah.
Well, no. Okay. Are you, how many times a day are you feeding your dogs? Oh, twice. Oh, well, that's a problem. And are you elevating their food and water dishes? No. And then what do you expect? In other words, if you don't do things right, you can't expect to get the right results, can you? So we developed this plan. So to give you an example, let's talk about you with your dogs that only live to 10. How many times a day do you feed them?
Twice.
There's your mistake right there.
Well,
An animal is, we feed our dogs a minimum, and I've got 50 in my house. So
Wow.
I tell people, don't complain if I'm suggesting for you to feed
Yeah.
more often, but I've got to do 50, okay?
Wow.
That we feed our dogs a minimum of 5 times a day.
Yes.
Small, frequent meals. What is that famous saying? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a
yeah.
time.
feed them smaller portions then?
Absolutely. It's not more food, it's smaller portion. You say, well, why? Why do I have to do that? Well, because their bodies aren't designed as well as ours. So
Yeah.
if you only feed twice a day, that means in 24 hours you fed your dogs twice. No matter what time you feed them, there's still going to be a minimum of 12 hours, and that's too hard on their bodies. That's way too hard.
Yeah.
Think of it. Let's put it in human terms. Have either of you ever gone out to like a buffet or a friend's house where you ate too much and you literally came home and had to lie down to digest your
Oh
food?
yes, so many
Absolutely.
times.
If
Yeah.
you only feed a dog or dogs twice a day, you are making that dog's body go through that same
Wow.
massive digestive effort.
Yeah.
I explain to people, and you see, here's the thing. When you don't have pesticides in the food, you minimize the risk of cancer. So most people, their dogs die of cancer. Our dogs are getting beyond the cancer. In 30 years, with more than 15,500 dogs, and that's when we stopped counting 10 years ago, we only had a dozen cases of cancer. And my wife believes they actually came here with the cancer.
Wow.
So how is it we can have such a low amount? Well, we're not feeding foods that have pesticides in them.
Incredible.
Okay.
For sure.
So, Burt, I want to make sure that we talk about your incredible body of work as well. You've received significant honors from the White House and the United Nations. How do these recognitions compare to your accomplishment in Hollywood, and how have this shaped your perspective on success and service?
Well, okay, that's a nice big question. Let me give you the answer. The answer is, hasn't changed me at all. Because my focus is what I'm doing to try to save animals and help them live longer. And my wife and I look at it this way.
Thank you,
We
Burt.
want to leave this planet better off than we found it.
Oh, that's
We love animals.
fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, and we take no money from it.
Like I said, thank you.
So, yes, receive
You have a good heart.
receiving
Incredible.
the award.
Beautiful heart.
Actually, I received 2 awards from the President of the United States. I received the President's Volunteer Service Award for having rescued all those dogs.
That's amazing.
Which I accepted on behalf of my wife, Tracy, and myself, because we do everything together, and actually she works harder than I do.
Oh, is she right?
Bless her heart.
Is she right there next to you?
And I wish she was. She's taking care of the dogs
Oh.
right now.
Somebody's got to do it, right?
Right.
The second award was the Lifetime Achievement Award, the President's Lifetime Achievement Award. And this is based on all of the things and the dedication of our whole lives to helping better and improve the life of animals and even humans.
Fantastic.
Those are 2 awards. And then from the United Nations, we individually received the the Humanitarian Award from the United Nations. So we each got the Humanitarian Award and then the 2 awards from the President. And that was wonderful. I've never, it's a tremendous honor. But still, the greatest honor to me is when we have customers call us up. Let me give you a quick example and tell you. Now, here we are right near the end of October. On January 3rd, coming up, we have a customer whose dogs have been eating our food for more than 16 years.
Wow.
And on January 3rd, one of his dogs, Lucky, will be 31 years old.
Amazing.
Oh,
Is this a
wow.
big dog or a
We
little
have
dog?
his medical records to prove that he's 31. You're going to be 31. He's 30 now in 10 or 11 months, and he will be 31 years old.
Wait, is this
Now,
a big dog?
no, this is not a big. Well, it's not. He's 25 or 30 pounds, so it's not like
Medium.
a tiny dog, but he's a middle-sized dog. Okay, but our own Russian wolfhound Tara, a giant breed dog with a traditional lifespan of 7 to 9 years, she, at 25 years of age, the television show Inside Edition came out and filmed an entire segment. Spent the whole day here filming her. It is actually on their website. It's also on our website. The title of the Inside Edition segment was Could this be the oldest living pooch in the world? That was the
Wow.
title. Could this
That's
be the oldest living?
incredible.
She was 25. She lived to 27 and a half, which was 4 times her normal lifespan.
Okay,
Now,
you've
that is very
convinced
rare.
me to buy your dog food. I'm going to buy that and the cat food. And you're absolutely right about the fat, because my cat has a digestive problem. I rescued him during COVID, and he was a tiny little beautiful kitten, and he would just throw up. So the doctor said he needs digestive, something for the belly kind of food that's very sensitive. Even these sensitive foods that I touch, I see the bowl, they're like engrossed with fat, like hard fat, like
That's
Crisco.
exactly, and that's why if you feed our food, there's none of that there. And in fact, when we went to make our food, we originally went to most of the manufacturers of pet food, and not one of them wanted to make it for us.
Oh.
And you know why?
No.
Because they said that they make it for most of the pet food companies, and they use the same ingredients, different proportions because of different foods.
Yeah.
But we were too picky, that we wanted ingredients that they didn't carry, that didn't allow them to make it in massive millions of bags of food amounts.
Wow.
So we ended up going to a company that didn't make pet food.
So-
And as a result, and by the way, we've never had a recall on our food.
Oh, that's
ever.
fantastic.
I don't think you can find a pet
Wow.
food company that's been around a while that hasn't had a recall. And the
That's-
company that makes our food for us has never in 80 years had a recall.
What is the percentage
The
of
standards are so high.
what is the percentage of dog food, other dog food companies that are like yours? Is there any percentage, or
I don't know of another food like ours. Let
So-
me tell you, there are only a couple, and I mean probably less than the 5 fingers on your one hand, that are non-GMO.
Wow.
But the ones that I've seen that are non-GMO actually have a disclaimer right where it says non-GMO, and it'll say something like, this was produced in a plant where there possibly could be some cross-contamination with GMOs. Because the plant, remember, it's a pet food plant, it's making the other stuff too. And so what that tells me that their bag is saying is that, and they're saying in their bag, they only have a little bit of cancer. Not too much cancer, just
Yeah.
a little bit of cancer.
that's still not
So-
good?
We don't want to have any. So
Yeah.
that's why we are 100% with no genetically modified organisms
Wow,
in our
that's
ingredients.
That's
Great.
Not
incredible.
a single one. It took us 18 months
Wow.
to find suppliers who could give us that food.
That's
And-
incredible.
And one of the reasons we take no money from it is because it is so expensive. Think of it. If you were buying something that 98% of the country could sell you, that you're going to get a much better price than if only 2% of the country can sell you, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so hard to get and so hard to find.
So-
but that's our food, both dry and canned. 100%. Oh, and let me mention something else. I don't know if you've ever fed canned food. Do you feed canned food to either of you? To your
No.
I don't, because I heard that their poop is more wet than dry, so it's like dirtier to
let me
clean
tell
up.
you what they do. Here's the problem. The problem is what they put in the can to preserve the food, to allow it to last longer in the can. They use it, almost everyone. I don't know anybody but us they all use gums like guar gum, exanthium gum.
Yeah, I've seen that on the
There's another thing
ingredients.
called carrageenan they use. We don't have any of that. We use a prebiotic. We have probiotics and prebiotics.
Oh, that's
That's
lovely.
Everything
incredible.
we have is healthy.
So,
100% healthy.
as you envision the future of animal care, what do you hope to see change in the next, 10 years?
Well, let me tell you something. It's funny. The one complaint I get is and then my wife gets, is that they say, you do so much for animals. Why don't you do something for people? Well, here's the answer. I tell them. I said, if I help you keep your dog or your cat an extra 5 or 10 years longer, don't you think I've done something for you as well?
Yeah.
And they go, oh, yeah, you're right when you put it that way. But to answer, Tess, when you talked about how old your dogs and cats were. The last 2 cats we had, one was 31 years old, died, and the other was
Oh my
32 years old.
gosh.
And they, at the time,
Unbelievable.
were eating our dog food because we hadn't made our cat food at that time. They were eating our dog food, and they still lasted that long.
What's
Wow.
the difference between cat food and dog food? If your cats can live that long eating dog food, why make the cat food?
Well, because technically that their cats do need a few extra items of nutrition. They need a little higher fat content, a little higher protein content. But and that's when you sort of compare the basic minimums. But when you have standards that are so high like ours, it almost doesn't matter. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Because the nutrition level is so great that the extra nutrition that the cat needs, they're getting from the food.
What is this price point?
The price point?
Yeah, how much do you
our,
sell it
our,
for?
Our pet food in stores like Petco, which we're in 1,500 Petcos, I think our 30-pound bag of food is like $44, something like that.
Oh, that's reasonable.
It's about half of what these very high-end food. Our food, in my opinion, there's nobody's food compares to ours. They're not even comparable because they've got GMOs in them. They got excessive fat. If there was someone that made a food like ours, then we would have competition. But in a way, I would welcome it. This is not about selling more food. For us, it's about helping animals live longer and healthier. And by the way, let's talk about health for a minute. You know, here at our home, with 50 dogs, actually 47 right now as of today, 47 in our house. But with 47 dogs in our house, our animals eating our food are so healthy. The only time they go to a veterinarian is every 3 years for a rabies shot.
Wow,
that's incredible. We don't have illness here. So, and I tell people, you think you're saving money buying this cheap dog food, or even if you spend money on the high-end dog food and you don't realize that it's got GMOs in it, all you need is one good vet bill, because it's almost as expensive as human.
Yeah. So, Burt,
and you haven't gained anything.
Sorry, our listeners obviously would want to hear about your role as, the original Batman. I think Robin, I'm sorry.
Batman
so Robin,
guy. Yes. The little guy.
What can you tell us about this iconic TV show,
Robin.
Right?
It was a lot of fun. I grew up as a kid where I lived. They didn't have Batman comic books. They had Superman comic books and Superboy comic books. And as a kid, I was kind of a quiet kid, kind of by myself. And I would read the comic books, and I would daydream as a kid growing up of being a superhero.
Oh,
and you were a smart kid too, I hear.
I honestly believe thoughts are things. And if you think hard enough and intense enough and long enough, you can draw things to you.
Yeah.
So I have a photo of myself my mother took when I was 3 years old, riding a little tricycle, 3 wheels, and she had a towel around my neck, held together with a clothespin, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to, I thought I was Superboy. So when I had the chance, and I did study, I don't want to minimize it. I studied acting for years before I had the opportunity to try out, both professionally and at UCLA. But my point was, when I had the opportunity to try out for the part, for me, I just threw myself into it. It was like all of that time and years of thinking and daydreaming, it made it easy. And by the way, when I was hired, I think you might be interested to know that the executive producer said to me, he said, "Burt, would you like to know why we hired you to play the role?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I would." He said, "Well, first of all, we interviewed more than 1,100 young actors for this part.
That's
national, 1,100 young actors over a 1.5 year period. And he said, the reason we picked you is because in our minds, if there really was a Robin, forget television, he said, forget TV, if there really was a Robin, we think you personally would be it. So we only want you to do two things. When we don't want you to try to do all the extra acting or overact or do anything. We only want you to do two things. One, we want you to be enthusiastic, which I am. And two, we want you to be yourself. Be yourself and be enthusiastic. Well, that's a no-brainer for me.
That's incredible advice for anyone out there who wants to get in the industry.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So, when you look back in your work as both an entertainer and, of course, obviously all the advocacy work that you're currently doing, what core values do you hope people will take away from your journey?
Well, first of all, it's I would say there's certain things that to me and to my wife Tracy are really important, and that is sincerity.
Wow.
Integrity.
Oh, incredible.
Those are great values, Burt.
Honesty.
Yeah.
And in our world, in today's world, a lot of people can be very down to earth, and that's
Yes.
wonderful. That's where you get the most done in communicating. But not everybody is down to earth, and not everybody
Yes.
tells you what they're really thinking or has an agenda. When you deal with animals, they're very real.
Yes, they are.
There's no airs. There's no
Ah,
put on.
They love you unconditionally.
That's right, and they are what they are.
Oh, that's
And
beautiful.
and it's funny because because with all this political stuff going, you got the Hatfields and the McCoys, everybody fighting, everybody angry. What we've done is we've stayed apolitical. We love the animals, and the one thing I will tell you about everybody, probably 99.5% of our country, they love their animals.
Yes, they
That's
do.
fantastic.
When we are truly for the animal, we have no problems. We have no problem, and we do communicate to people. And I'll tell you something. In Hollywood, there's a lot of people with Hollywood attitudes and stuff like that. But you know something? When we have dealt with them and we're talking about their animals, all of a sudden all those airs go away, and all of a sudden they're really concerned.
Wow.
And it's like, wow,
Yeah.
how refreshing. This person is very down to earth.
You're
This
right.
famous actor or actress or producer or director, I mean, they're just like everybody else when all of a sudden it comes down to real life,
Yes.
life and death. And we are 100% for our animals, for everybody's
Yeah.
animals.
I'm like that,
That
too.
is so true. And
I
I
have a-
usually watch shows like America's Got Talent. And usually when you have all those various acts with like dogs, those always seem to do so well. Just, it brings a lot of joy and happiness to
People love
to-
animals.
Oh, people do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're very real.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
I-
I mean, anything they do, they just do it. There's no airs. There's no. It's so funny. But for us, it's very refreshing, and because our animals are honest. They show
are.
you what they are.
Sometimes
There's
they're
no
better
hate
than
in-
people. Most people,
Right.
actually.
Well, there's a famous saying, about man's best friend being a dog, and the joke is the reason the dog is man's best friend is because he wags his tail instead of his tongue.
Wow.
That's cute.
So,
Hey, I want to talk about you were at a KNX event down in Hollywood, Walk of Fame, and I heard you on the radio talking, and I just happened to turn on the radio, and they were giving Batman, no particular person Batman, but just Batman a star. And then
Right.
I heard you talking, and then you go, "Holy Batman!" And I go, "I know that voice, and that is the original Robin."
That's
And
right.
you-
But you know what's so funny? Just in daily life, you'll talk to people. Sometimes I like watching these shows where like HGTV, where they are,
Yeah.
somebody's refixing up their house or whatever. And some of these people, that phrase, holy this, holy that, has gotten into our language. And so many times people will say something like that. And I really get a laugh because what we did with our show really, really affected people. Batman was the #1 show in the entire world. It was
wow.
actually
You're a
Congratulations.
legend.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
You're a legend, Bert.
That's fantastic.
Well, thank you, but it was when it came out in 1966. It was twice a week, and it was the highest rated show in the entire world.
Wow.
Twice a week, it was #1 and #2.
No, I watched it as a kid. I looked forward to it, man. I loved you, and I loved Adam West. I couldn't wait to see who the bad guy was. Was
Yeah.
it the Riddler, the Joker? Oh, I loved Catwoman. I
Wow.
mean, yeah.
Yeah,
And then she had her own spin-off too, I think.
And you know what was refreshing? There were a lot of kids that, it's funny because I have made a lot of appearances in my career.
Yeah.
More than 7,000 appearances, and I've signed more than 8.5 million autographs.
Oh my God, that is
And-
fantastic.
And you have your
Wow,
own Walk of
that's-
Fame star too, right, Bert?
yeah,
on
he
Hollywood?
does.
Yes,
He
yeah,
does.
right, in 2020.
And it's right
but
next to
I want
Adam
tell
West's.
you something. I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said things like, when I was growing up, when you had your show on, I was actually hanging around with a bad crowd of people, and because of your show, I decided to change and to be a positive person and do things honestly. And that person that said that to me was an FBI agent.
Wow.
He was going to be in a gang, and
Yeah.
he changed his life and turned around. So the thing that we were happy about is that Adam and I together tried to instill positive values.
Oh,
You
that's
don't-
amazing.
Can't wait until children are teenagers, or it's no different than a dog. You can't
Yeah.
wait and let bad
You guys
habits.
are
So
the
the
best
original
mentors.
Years, you have to do it when they're young to try to encourage people to do the right thing. And if we all do the right thing, we could have such an incredibly better world if we're
I
all
know.
working together.
So the original series, obviously, the Batman remains a cultural, touchstone, particularly in the age of superhero, blockbusters. How do you believe the timeless values of the series resonate with audiences today?
Well, let's think of it this way. I really wonder if our show hadn't been so successful, if you would have had all these superhero movies. It was because of the success of Batman that Warner Brothers turned around and started making Batman movies.
Wow.
And then you've got Marvel that's making with their Marvel characters. And look how successful it was.
Incredible.
So we definitely made a major contribution, in the industry and the thing is, the whole idea of you see, why do people like going to movies? They like the escapism. They like the idea of taking their mind off pressures or things and have a little bit of happy time.
Yeah.
Right.
And superheroes, they're bigger than life.
Yes.
They can do great
It's
things.
fantasy.
Wow.
And it's like fantasy, and it really it inspires people and makes them happy, even if it's just a brief time, and then they have to go back to living
Yes.
a daily life.
Yeah.
But people want to be happy. And we, by working with dogs and people who have pets, when you have a pet, I find that people that own pets are special people.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
So
they understand, and they're around an animal
Yeah.
is real.
So-
So even a person that has a little bit of airs about them, they're brought down to life pretty quick by an animal who
Wow.
all of a sudden does real things, and the more people have animals, it seems like those people we get along with the best.
Wow. So, Burt,
you.
we're down to the last 3 minutes. The last question is, if you were to have dinner with anyone dead or alive, who would it be and why would you want to have dinner with them?
Well, I certainly would prefer to have someone that was alive. And I think Elon Musk would be or President Trump would be someone that I would like to have dinner with, because they have great minds.
Well, I
Regardless
feel
of
like-
political stuff, they have very intelligent minds.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you, Burt. Your journey, your legacy is remarkable. Thank you so much for
was a
sharing your
pleasure.
legacy with us. Really, really appreciate it. This
All
was
right, and
great.
as we say on Batman, the Batmobile.
Thank you.
To the
Ladies
Batmobile.
and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a wonderful episode with the iconic, I can't even talk, Burt Ward. So please make sure you watch this episode on the Discovery Pod with Eve's YouTube channel, or you could listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks again, Roger Neal, for this episode, and Jamie. Thanks everyone, and see you next time. Bye.